Greetings, friends. Your cartoonist pal Stan here with a brand new episode of 50 Years in the Dungeon, the show I do to celebrate the fact that the hobby and, for me, career of tabletop role playing and hobby gaming is 50 years old and then some. And, very often I have folks on here to interview. This is not an interview week, this is Gen Con week. There's a lot going on this week. People are headed to Indianapolis. I clearly not among them. Not going to Indy this year. I actually haven't been in a while. Um, I do have many happy Gen Con memories, and I'll be happy to kind of share some stories if that's what you want to ask about in the chat. But there are fewer and fewer professional reasons for me to be there, and it's just not something that fits into my travel expense budget easily. Anyone who's gone to Gen Con knows that it's not a cheap trip. And I'm not saying it's not worth it. I'm just saying that my budget isn't as big as it was at one point. So I've got to choose and select. And Gen Con just the hasn't made it to the upper half of the right side of the ledger in a while. I know that tonight, while I'm doing the show, in fact, the Diana Jones Awards are going on. Diana Jones for awards for excellence. Let's do that again. The Diana Jones Award for Excellence in Gaming. It's not just one award now; it's awards, um, and organized by a secret cabal of gaming experts led by my friend Matt Forbeck. And I'm sorry I can't be there. There's a lot of things I'm sorry I can't be at, but kind of made my peace with that. But I do love to celebrate the fact that it's Gen Con week going on, and so I'm happy to talk about it. It's Michael in chat. Hello, Michael in chat. It's not a cheap trick or trip. Um, you walk away with memories that will last you the rest of your life. Um, but you got, like so many things, memories do have a cost. This one turns out to be an actual monetary cost. So yeah, I hope everyone that is going is having a great time. I hope if you have never been to Gen Con that you go one day. If you live anywhere in the area and you can, go for a single day or make a trip to Indy and then kind of maybe go and stay somewhere else that's a little cheaper outside, work it in. Gen Con is a great event to visit. You know what? I'll tell you what, I was talking last weekend to a graphic designer friend of mine who happens to live in Indianapolis, and I was recommending to her that she go down to Gen Con. And she said she couldn't afford a ticket. And I said, look, the thing is, there's so much happening around Gen Con. Yeah, there's the exhibit hall and the events and things that you absolutely do need a badge to get into. But there's also a lot else going on in the downtown um, Indianapolis area. There's First of all, the people watching is great. You see everyone a lot of people in costumes, a lot of other people walking around. There's a big food truck gallery. There are events going around, and events that you don't need a badge to go to. You certainly can walk around some areas of the convention center. In fact, the main public areas, and there's lots of things to see. There are musical acts and displays and art displays and exhibits and some kind of small what's the word I'm looking for? They're not events, but kind of like puzzles and games, and there's lots to get on, even if you don't have a badge and can't spend all weekend, or can't get in to the exhibit hall, which is where all the companies have their displays and there's cool stuff to see. Um, so yeah, I highly recommend, if you are in the area, just kind of swinging by Gen Con and seeing what it is that you can see even without a badge. And then maybe one of these years you'll like it so much that you will get a badge. Who knows? There's a lot going on at Gen Con. There's more than most people realize. A few years back, I did a project with Gen Con LLC to kind of go over their program books over several years and just kind of organize for them information about how much was going on. Even they weren't quite aware of how much was going on at their own show because different people in the company are organizing different things. And they're so busy putting it together that they kind of lost track of some of the things they'd added. And I tell you, there's just if you like anime and manga, the biggest anime or biggest or second biggest anime show in the Midwest. Now this was true 8 years ago. I don't know that it's still true. If it's not the biggest, it's going to be one of the biggest. Is a sub show within Gen Con. And there is a film festival now. It's a film festival that runs 4 days at Gen Con. You can just go to the film festival. There is a writers' conference associated with Gen Con. You could have an entire weekend of just writer seminars and events. It's quite a show. Hello, Carrie Andrew. Hello to Maryland. Hope things are going good out there. Michael says Watsy isn't even in the main hall. They're in the yeah. So they're in the theater down the street. They took over what is the main where the Indianapolis Opera performed. So it's not just the theater down the street. They took over the whole building. It's not just that theater. It's a 5-story building of smaller event areas. And Wizards, rather than be in the main hall and set things up there, have taken over that whole building with all of their events. And I'm pretty sure you need a badge to get into most of that, but maybe not. Maybe just like the big events. Certainly worth checking out. Michael says big anime fest here too. I don't. Does Pittsburgh count as Midwest? Michael? I don't know. It's kind of in that range. It could. But yeah, no, there's big anime, big stuff going on. Big stuff going on at Gen Con of all sorts. So, everyone who's there, have a good time. If you have it within your wherewithal to kind of go check it out this weekend, you have time, go check it out. And if not, maybe next year. It may for all of us. Kind of like at Passover next year in Jerusalem, next year in Indianapolis. Yes. So that's going on this week. But as I say, I'm not there, and there are a bunch of people around. And a lot of people I know are traveling, so I didn't try and get anyone on the schedule to speak today. We're going to have another work in progress show today, where I continue to work on one of the drawings that I've done, one of the cartoon homages that I do as part of the show. And this will be, in fact, the point where I am going to start to do coloring on the piece I worked on last week, which was my homage to Larry Elmore's cover for the original. Sorry, I'm setting it up on my iPad so I can show you the original Shadowrun cover. So let me switch over here, and we can get going there. So yes, this is what's going on. The state is considered Mid-Atlantic, but that's only on the Philly side. Yeah, Pennsylvania's a big state. And, I've lived in a lot of states that kind of have that kind of divide in them. Washington is one of them. The difference between the west side, west of the Cascade Mountains, where Seattle and Bellevue and what people think of as the, they think of Seattle as Washington. And it certainly is endemic of Western Washington. But when you get on the east side of the Cascades, it's a whole different state. The there's a desert and a big plain, and Spokane is the major city there, but there are other major centers or larger centers. So yeah, it's hard. The people there feel a little like when everyone describes Washington based on Seattle, they have kind of a similar. Uh, um, well, it's not just take this you're kind of pointing out there with Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania. And certainly when I lived in New York, I grew up in the New York metro area, but then I lived for about 8 or 10 years in upstate New York, in the middle. It's kind of smack dab in the middle of it, and it's true, right? I certainly brought my downstate uh, way of thinking up there, and I learned a lot. That New York is more than just the New York metro area. New York State is more than just the New York metro area. So yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying. Is all I'm saying, Michael. Um, Michael's saying we live in San Diego. Oh yeah, don't get me started with California. California has 3 or 4 different distinct subcultures going on in it. Lots of lots going on. We are a complicated country filled with complicated states. Anywho, let me grab my drink. I've been talking a lot for the start of this show. But I guess it being just me, that's not terribly surprising. And I'm all set to keep talking. Anyway, so I finished the line drawing for this. I created a coloring book version which doesn't have right now with all the layers overlapping. See, you can see right through one to the other, and that's going to change as I add color. But I took the whole thing last time and did some opaque white at various levels and created a coloring book page, which is available for folks who are subscribers to the free 50 Years in the Dungeon.substack.com newsletter. So you want to pop over there right now, you can find it and download it. Make use of it to your heart's content. All for personal use. For personal use only. Hello, Dale Donovan. Nice to see you, man. Michael wants to know how many coloring pages have I done now. That's a good question. Let me finish talking about this. You can get it there, and today I also released it for members of my Patreon, patreon.com/StanX. Again, for free members of my Patreon. Now, you can't just wander over there and get it as a John or Jane Q public. You got to become a member in either case, but membership is free, and you get those things. So the question is, how many of these coloring pages have I done so far? It's a good question. Let me come over here and come over to a different thing and see that. So we've got, I did the Shadowrun is the one I just put up there. I've also done, there's a Mask of the Red Death coloring page. Hello, David Schwartz. How are you doing this evening? I also did the dragon cover, the Keith Parkinson painting, the Northwatch. We have Dragons of a New Age coloring version. We've got the I can't remember the name. This is the Mutants and Masterminds adventure, whose name I'm forgetting off the top of my head, because that's just how full my brain is. The Lost Library, right? The Lost Library, and another Dragon magazine cover. Oh, that's from a different project. That's for I did art for an adventure that Bill Slavacek is going to be publishing in with his small little third party publishing endeavor, just his own personal thing. This is the cover for that, which I made into a coloring version. The Dragons of War, Riverbank, and then that's something else entirely. So there, that's one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight so far. I've made 8 so far. Is the answer to your question. Um, Michael says, "I love that one." I don't know which one you're talking about anymore, man. The lag is gonna get you. Um, what else do I want to say? Oh, so last week, we've been having problems with uh, the the tech side. There's been I've not been able to do what I did for the first 2.5 years of this show, which is interview someone and do drawing at the same time. And I've been working with the tech team at Ecamm, which is how I arrange the screen and everything, get it all on there, trying to find out the answer. And we've tried different things, and I have last week come up with, well, I didn't come up with. They offered me something which seems to work. It's not. It's still problematic, but I think that I will be testing that in the next week or two with a new show where I try to have a guest and draw at the same time. And if it works, we may be back in business. Otherwise, it may be in this flipping back and forth style that has become too standard. Dale says he likes each and every one. Oh, well, thank you, sir. Thank you, kind sir. Oh, the original piece for Bill. Yeah, that I like that too. The color version's very nice, and I did 5 or 6 pieces of art for the adventure too, which I think turned out pretty good. Let you know about the audience for debugging. The audience will be here possibly next Wednesday or the Wednesday after. All right, so let me get started, and then we'll get back to chatting. But you let me know if there are things in particular you are curious to have me um, chat about. So I'm going to take the backdrop out immediately, and we're going to take the shooter out, and we're going to take the ATM, and we're just going to have these two here are what I'm going to start the coloring with. Seems like a good spot. So I will say again, as I often do, that I do this all on an iPad Pro with the app Procreate and an Apple Pencil. I say that because people ask me what tools I use, and not because they are in any way sponsors for this. They are not. There are no sponsors. And again, as I often say, not that I wouldn't take them. And you know what? I may actually have some sponsors coming up in the not too distant future. But currently, no sponsors. All right, so let's go. We'll start with him. Now, he's got white hair, and again, part of the challenge with doing anything like this is that uh, you you something looks white right here. It's not. It's see-through. So I've got to add color first. So how do I want to do that? I think I want to just do the hair. I'm going to color the hair like it was skin toned. And then I'm going to change that to white. It's much easier to see what I'm drawing when I'm putting a shade other than the same shade as the background color. There we go. So now that's all pinky, fleshy color. But I'm going to change it to white, and now it really is white. And we're gonna come back and start working on this. All right, so yes, it's Gen Con week. I'm here. We're hanging out. What would you guys like to talk about? What's on your mind? Or more, I guess, to the point, what would you like to be on my mind? I'm saying with him, I'm going to have to add that I, I decided not to put line drawings for the makeup and other some of the other details that are colorful, and I'm just going to add them in color. But that means I need to remember to add them in color. It's a good thing to have a plan, but you've gotta follow through, or I gotta follow through, or the plan really doesn't help. So let's see. Among the other things, so I'm doing this uh, to celebrate Gen Con. I am also going to be doing a tomorrow night's um, Random Encounters episode is going to be Gen Con themed. This will be my fourth Gen Con themed episode of Random Encounters, which is strange because we're wrapping up season three, but I let this year on the show, this season three, uh, it technically should have ended back in the spring, and I just kept it going because of how swamped I was. So, whereas last year, at the start of season three, within the first month or so, we had a Gen Con episode. Now, I'm at the end of season three, I'm having another Gen Con episode. So, two Gen Cons in 1 year if you go by the season calendar. You go by my show's season calendar. Now, what I'm doing here, well, we're starting out, the first stage of coloring is to lay in the flat colors. So I'm just putting exactly what it sounds like, flat colors, as if you used a single crayon or a single marker or a single color of paint. I'm going to do the whole, um, I don't know if I'm going to do the whole image, but certainly whole sections, all the characters. Um, in flat colors, and then I'll go back and add some shading. And then I'll probably work on the colors for the background. Yeah, so I'm going to do the Gen Con themed show for Random Encounters tomorrow. And then I'm going to do another thing, which is based on a Gen Con tradition. One of my Gen Con traditions, and not just me, but my good buddy Owen K.C. Stevens. I don't know. I think both of us tended to do this thing individually, and we've since teamed up. And the thing is, when we're at Gen Con, it's very hard sometimes to find everyone that you want to interact with. In fact, as with so many, uh, one of the truths of large spaces, like large conventions, sometimes the best way to find someone is to stay in one place and wait for them to pass by you. And so Owen and I both had this tradition of taking at least one evening during Gen Con and just going into one of the lobbies of one of the hotels, where they're very very big, very nice hotels, and they have usually places to sit. They've got uh, couches or comfy chairs. We'd usually pick someone over the couch, and we would just hang out in the lobby. And in the lobby, it's usually right by the bar, so we go to the bar and get a drink. Neither one of us generally are drinking um, alcohol, though usually the hotel's okay with that. If you wanted to get a beer or a glass of wine, we usually both get a glass of some kind of fizzy drink, and then would go and just kind of plop down on a couch in the hotel lobby and see who walked by and call them over. Now we have a couch, a comfy couch, often with other chairs around them for uh, people to sit in. And while we're sitting there talking to someone, often someone of some degree of note, other people would see, either other friends or other fans would see and stop by too. And this became like an all night event where we would sit there and just kind of host a salon in the lobby at the couch. And so we've started doing this series of live streams during Gen Cons called Convo on a Couch. And we're going to be doing that again. We're going to be doing that twice during this Gen Con. It's going to be one on Friday afternoon slash evening, or it's evening most places, starting at 4 p.m. Pacific time, and going until we decide we've had enough. Almost certainly an hour and a half or 2 hours, possibly longer. And we will have guests drop by. We planned for a couple of guests. And, if someone we know shows up in the live chat, we may just invite them on too, the way we would grab someone who just happened to be walking through the lobby to come and join us for a little bit. So, Convo on the Couch, that will be here on my YouTube channel, also on my Facebook. I think that if we can figure out how, Owen may put it on his Facebook feed also. But check it out. You can, if you're watching this on YouTube now, you can certainly go to my channel, and it should be there as an option for for later on in the week. And then we're going to do it again on Sunday afternoon. I think that we're going to start at noon Pacific time, which is 3 p.m. Eastern, which is very close to the time that Gen Con ends. So while Gen Con is wrapping up, we will be doing another Convo on a Couch here online. Does it sound like fun? We always have a good time. Now, if anyone who's seen Owen and me do any kind of show together, we both are gabby people with a pretty good sense of humor and lots of different friends to invite by. So we always have a good time. It's always entertaining, or so I've been told. And if you're not going to be at Gen Con, well, this is a good way to get the same kind of vibe that of something you otherwise could only get to Gen Con. Dale says Gen Con announced today that all 4 days are completely sold out. Not surprising. Not surprising. But, as I was saying at the top of the show, that doesn't mean you might not want to go if you're in the area. I wouldn't drive too far. But if you're in the area, you might just want to go and uh, see what's going on down in downtown Indy, because there's lots of things that happen around Gen Con. Even if you can't get a badge. I'll tell you, I used to do that at San Diego Comic Con. The last couple of years I lived in San Diego. Um, I didn't. San Diego, even bigger than Gen Con, and even more of a pain in the butt to get around at. But I would go downtown, right near the convention center. I don't know if any of you have been there. There's a convention center, and then there's a big open plaza where the trolley goes through and the trolley station is. Uh, and then trying to decide what color I want to make his guitar strap, or his it's not a guitar strap, but this thing here. There's one restaurant on that plaza, and one of the challenges at San Diego Comic Con is if you don't want to eat the food that's in the convention center, or no, this is too close to that brown, or go to one of the hotels next door where it's a little pricey. There's one quick takeout place called the Tin Fish. I presume it's still there. It had been there forever. I don't see how they would ever give that up. And I would go to the Tin Fish at about 10:30 in the morning when it's not very busy, and I would get some fish tacos and a drink, and I would plunk myself down at a table near. It's got al fresco seating, and I would sit down at a table away from the front, so not in the way of all the people who want to get something quick to eat. And also towards the back, there's a nice tree. Sit under the tree, grab a table, and I would just start texting people. Lamasu Rex says, "What are those claws even for? Who the heck knows? That you know what they're showing off. They're just for showing off." As the golfers say, drive-ins for show and puttins for dough. These claws are for show. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so I would go to the Tin Fish and I would grab a seat and I would just start texting people, "I have a seat," because most people will want to grab some lunch or go out to the Tin Fish, and it's completely crowded. Everyone's eating there. There's nowhere to sit. You're looking, and I would let people know I have a table, and so I would get a nearly endless wave of friends and industry folk and people who I kind of knew, and people who I didn't know at all, but knew the people who were sitting near me, who would come through and sit at my table, and so I could get to hang out with all or at least many of the folks that I wanted to see, and never have to go into the actual convention. And almost always, by Sunday, someone there would say, "I'm done. I'm not going in. Do you want my badge?" And then I could go in if I wanted to. Anyway. All right. What do we got going on here? What do we got going on here? Need this chain color, this kind of silvery color I've picked for the silver metallic for the chain he's got. Very 1980s fashion statement. It's funny, you know, it's things like cyberpunk, anything cyberpunk, where fashion is so important, and as a setting in Shadowrun, fashion is very important. Well, you kind of get stuck with it, and it's supposed to be future, right? It's future fashion, so you wind up getting stuck with the future fashion being very reminiscent of what was fashionable in the year it was created, kind of like the 1960s and 50s uh, retro future stuff. Right now, you look at it and it doesn't look futuristic; it looks very much like the 1960s. I look at what these people are wearing in the Shadowrun, and I think, "Who boy is that 80s? The future is very 80s." Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, I assume those claws are. Look at those. They sure look like they're retractable. In fact, I bet that this thing on his wrist has something to do with it. So, unlike Wolverine, I don't think it's a permanent part of his body. I think this is something he has decided to equip himself with for this adventure. He thought that he needed some some claws. And now we have the pants, which I talked about when I was drawing them. I did not go with the kind of pants he had. I really kind of played into that idea of the very 80s uh, retro future and gave him kind of hammer pants style parachute pants. Can't touch this. Can't touch this. Um, and I hope that Larry Elmore, should he ever see this interpretation, will forgive me for taking the liberty of giving this character hammer pants. But all right, is that maybe needs to be a little too purple? Is that okay? There we go. That's better. He's too legit to quit. This guy. Oh, no, they're not cyberjacks. They're definitely those are definitely weapons. Like he's got jacks on his head, and he's gonna. That's what he's doing over here. But that's a weapon in his hand. Uh, those claws. He was reading a lot of old X-Men comics. He wanted to be Wolverine. That's going to be stuck in my head for the rest of the night. Hmm. All right. I think those are the basic flat colors for him. Although I think now I got to go in and add his eyeliner. Now here's where I need a good purple that kind of borders on magenta. So it definitely has some kind of coloring on his lips. Some kind of makeup on his lips. Is that too dark? That's too dark. We can come back. That's too light. Somewhere in the middle. There we go. Alright, so that's a good flat set of colors for him. I'm going to come back and add more depth later. Now we have our half-naked gun bunny. Her makeup? I don't know. Alright, I've done a lot of things different on her. I took a lot of liberties in kind of adapting her. As talking about, I really kind of went for a Brigitte Nielsen inspired look. But she doesn't have that. Brigitte Nielsen had very white blonde hair. She does not have that. She's got for sure. You got to lay down the lightest of the colors first, and then add on top of it. So We're starting with this really light blonde. Hey, Big Nate. What's going on in your part of the world, Big Nate? Hmm. Just this bikini is just too, too weird. Too weird. Come on, Larry. I know it was the 1980s, but come on, man. Gotta assume that her body is all kinds of cyborg modded up, and it just looks like she's kind of like um what's the major in Ghost in the Shell? Yeah, sure. She looks like a half naked cyber chick. Turns out, Death Cyborg. Then we need that needs to be a little bluer. I want these to definitely look like denim. When all is said and done, that's what these are supposed to look like. Cut off jeans, cut off shorts, because they are cut off shorts. Yeah, she's definitely wearing high Daisy Duke style cutoffs. Daisy Dukes count as 80s or late 70s fashion, tragic fashion trend. Both. All right, fair enough. Both. There we go. Now I did so when I was drawing originally. I think I said I was not going to draw the. I was going to leave the magic to wholly be color implemented with the color. But then when I did the coloring image, I needed to draw one on. I realized I liked the way it looked, so I did draw a line. But I'm going to come back in there now. Now? Yeah, I'll do it now. I'm going to come to the lines layer, which is where that effect lives. We're going to alpha lock it, which means it will only go where I've already drawn. And I'm not sure yet what color it's going to be, but I'm going to put it in right now. We're going to get the line to no longer be a black line. There we go. And we can deal with the rest of that later. But now she's definitely got a magical effect around her hand. And we're going to go for the buckskin jacket next. Seems like a good buckskin color there. Not sure if that's too light. No, that's a good starting color. It's a good base color. As I said before, you definitely want to put the lighter colors down first, and then you can build up stronger colors over them. If you put too strong a color down at the bottom, it's very hard to pull back on it. But you can always build up over the lighter color. So, Kerry Andrew, who's in the chat, is a friend of mine from college, and was a friend of mine who was in my the gaming group that I was part of. I've often talked on the show about the how my um, I game design was not something you could study. I learned game design by tinkering around with uh, villains and vigilantes in an 8-year campaign that we ran at college. And Carrie was one of the people in that campaign. It was a we did everyone had multiple characters, and we traded off GM chores. We had multiple GMs and multiple storylines, and Carrie had uh, several of the several of what would be considered the main characters in the 8-year story arc, and was the GM for a large portion of it. And I bring that up not not just to make make Kerry feel all good, but Kerry was talking earlier today to me. He sent me a text where he had found some of the notes he'd done back in college for the game. I don't know if they were things that we'd seen fleshed out or that he'd never finished fleshing out. I don't remember. Um, but it was really cool to see those. So thank you, Kerry, for sharing those. Have me thinking a lot about our campaign and the characters and all the good times we had. I know I've got a few drawings from that era, but I don't have any of the game designy stuff that I did. I don't have any of the maps or the equipment or things like that. I was in college for 8 years. I was in college for 5 years. I took the 5 year plan, and then I stayed around in Binghamton after that. So that's why it's 8 years. Kerry was did his undergrad and then his grad uh, work at the same school. So he was around. He wasn't an undergrad for 8 years. And I don't Kerry. I think you were gone for uh, what I and our friend Chartreuse, who sadly passed away last year, um, talk of well when we talked about the 8 years, the last year, I think you were carried down in Stony Brook. You'd gone off, but you still came back on a regular basis, and so you know, I mean, everyone who was in the campaign was part of it. Anyone who's in the campaign at any length of time, but I think the last year of what I consider the 8 years that the campaign ran, Kerry was no longer living in the area. And there was certainly a period of time when I was not there. I, after graduating, went back down to the New York metro area for a while, but I came back up regularly, and so the games might not have been as frequent as they had been when we were all at school at the same time. But the campaign continued. I think the real end to the the campaign was when I went to Japan, because then Chartreuse didn't have anyone to continue on with. I think Chartreuse and I uh, carried on with the most regular games in it after others, like Carrie, graduated and moved away more or less permanently. Um, but when I was gone, well, that was kind of it. I'm sure there were more games that got played, but it stopped being considered the ongoing campaign. Those are like special events. Dale says you took an extra semester to complete a minor you added late. I wish I had that excuse. You know what happened to me was I uh, I really didn't pay attention to what was going on. I At Binghamton, you had to there were requirements you had to fulfill to get your degree, and I had all of like the requirements for my major. I'd hit like it. I had like a you know 3.5, 3.6 average, right? And I'd done that, and so you're supposed to when you go to the school, you're supposed to um, get a counselor to help you uh, plan out your what you're taking each semester, stuff like that. And I never did. I just kind of went through and I read what I needed, and I just didn't want to be bothered going to a counselor. I'd had worthless counselors when I was in high school, and so I really was not thinking that they were going to do me any good. And so when I came in, you go through what we, at least I'm sure most schools have, they call the 7 semester check when you're getting ready to graduate, and you go through and find out what, just to make sure you have everything you need to graduate. You have to go and do that with a counselor. That's how you get approved for uh, being part of graduation. And so the counselor, I went in, and the counselor, wow, I can't believe we've never seen you. And I made some stupid ass excuse and said, well, let's go over, let's make sure you got everything you need. And he looked at my transcript. He's like, "Oh yeah, oh look at you. Oh, you got like a 3.6. No, you're not quite good enough to like get an award, but you did really good. It's good grades. Everything's going good." And he's checking you've got this. And in at Binghamton, when we got there, I think it was the year I got there. They'd uh, there'd been some in the national news in the late 70s was a kind of a lot of pieces about the falling level of skill at basic writing and communication skills. And so they had implemented a requirement for uh, for everyone, no matter what they were attending, they had to take 2 writing emphasis classes, um, a lower level one and an upper level one. And in going through uh, my transcript, um, the counselor looked, and so going through. I was an English and rhetoric major, and so there were a lot uh, of writing emphasis stuff. There's usually no worry about that for people in that discipline. And in fact, he saw that I took 3 upper level writing, and I got an A at a 4.0 in across the board in the upper level. It's like, wow, that's really good. Those are hard. They necessarily make those difficult and grade them hard. Good job. And he's going through the the rest of what I'm doing, and he says, we're getting towards the end. He's like, everything looks like it's in shape except, and he starts looking around. He says, except I can't find your lower level writing requirement. And he starts looking through. Says, no, I can't find a lower. And he starts naming off all the classes that give you the lower level writing requirement. He says, in your sophomore year, didn't or it wasn't even my sophomore year, didn't you did you take X or Y or Z? And I said, no, I took these instead. And in fact, one of them was an upper level requirement. So in my sophomore year, I took an upper level requirement and got a 4.0 in it. And he said, oh, no, I see that. It's very impressive. As a sophomore, you did that, but you've got to take the lower level requirement. And I said, but I have 3 upper level requirements, and as you pointed out, I got a 4.0 average in them. I said, I know, it's really impressive, but you still have to take a lower level requirement. And so we went over it, and I knew he was going to find I did not take any of them. I had opted for more difficult things because the lower level requirements just sounded boring to me in my sophomore year. And since I was picking what I was doing, I picked the more interesting things. And he said, the thing is, you can't graduate if you don't have a lower level requirement. So I took a fifth year. I mean, I could have come back and just done one lower level requirement, and that would have been it. But things being the way they were, and um, the you know job job situation being comparable to what it is today, I decided to just take a whole extra year. So I took a fifth year so I could get my lower level writing requirement in. And I did. So that's how it is that I was on the 5 year plan. It led to some very interesting things. I had a super easy fifth year because all I had to take was the lower level requirement, and I took more interesting things and uh, in the lower level. So it was filled with sophomore students and you know a basically graduate level student, me. Um, I hated that class. Not because it was difficult. I hated that class. All right, what do we got here? It's another thing. I think I want this to basically be white, but I'm going to start by making it blue and then coloring over the blue with white. Again, we're going for the flat colors here. Flat colors before we add details. Still trying to figure out exactly how I'm going to deal with the magic. Yeah, that's about right. So yeah, bureaucracy got me. Or I got myself by not being a little too independent for my own good. Now, so we gave his eyes, so we're going to do her face too. So she's got a very rusty red. No, that's too dark for sure. Now, it's hard to tell how much of this is meant to be makeup and how much of it, like, maybe is a bruise. I'm going to leave the bruisey part out of it. we go. There we go. That's the flat colors on those two. And it only took me an hour. Michael says, on the chance that it's not too untoward to ask, it's always okay to ask. I may not answer, but it's always okay to ask. How are the quartet of recent Blizzard retirees handling retirement? Uh, Blizzard? Are you talking about the our folks like Jeff Grubb and Ed Stark and Bill Slavisek, who are working for ZeniMax, who got caught up in the layoffs a couple of weeks ago? Um, is that who you're asking about? It's not untoward to ask. I don't. There's only so much of their news I'm willing to tell, but I'm willing to tell some of it. All right, so that's how they look. Now we'll open up our shooter level, this guy, and we'll turn off the ATM pair, and we're just going to go to him. He's got a lot. There's a lot going on here. Boop. So we need to come to his layer. We need to add a new layer where we're putting the flat colors. And we'll start. With the whole lower half of the face where it's painted clown white. And we'll just do that. I didn't get. Alright, so let's go to the lines layer, because what I didn't even notice till right now, is it's somehow he's. Is it. Does he have like a cutout around his eye? Or is it all. Is it all red? I don't know. The thing is, look, his nose seems to be flesh colored here. I don't like that as much as kind of giving him a flesh tone around the eye. So I'm gonna do it my way. I mean, I'm already, you know, doing my own takes on it already. There we go. Sorry, I haven't looked up to find your answer if that's who you want me to dish some news on. I'll look up in a second. All right. Yeah, it wasn't Blizzard. No, I mean there were a lot of people that got caught in layoffs in that week. Blizzard. There were a lot of people at Blizzard that got laid off too. But no, they were at ZeniMax, the folks who make uh, Elder Scrolls Online, and they were part of the Xbox team. Not directly related to Blizzard, other than everyone that Microsoft, uh, every company that Microsoft owns is kind of connected to each other. No, they weren't connected to Blizzard at all. Um, they were ZeniMax Online, and yes. So we're talking about Ed Stark and um, Jeff Grubb and Bill Slavicsek and Rich Baker are probably the quartet that you are thinking of. For ex TSR, ex Wizards folks who had gone on to work at ZeniMax together, and they're doing good. I haven't talked directly to Bill or Rich, um, though I talk to Ed and Jeff frequently, and I get news of them, and everyone's doing good, right? The good thing, for what it's worth, the good thing for all of them is they've been through this before, right? All of them have been through uh, layoffs, big corporate layoffs. They know how much it sucks. They've they've done the dance, the kind of emotional dance. It doesn't save you from going through it again, but it makes it easier because you understand that you're going to feel this way for a while, and then you're going to feel that you're going to have the shock, and you're going to feel betrayed, and you're going to uh, and you need to reach out to this person or take these steps because you've done it before. So, um, from everything anyone has told me and everything I can observe, they're all doing well, uh, considering. Right? They say it doesn't stop you from having you're still going to have your emotional reactions. You're still going to feel really crappy about it. You're still going to have kind of, what did I do wrong? And even though you know the answer is you did nothing wrong, it has nothing to do with you. So, yes, uh, they are doing well. I know that. I mean, the other thing is they are all far enough in their career that at least some consideration can be given to, is this time that I retire? Some of them are closer than others to that line, uh, but it certainly has to be in at least a line of consider. And I think for a couple of them, I think for Ed and Rich, the answer immediately is no, I'm not close enough. But for Jeff and Bill, they're within that circle that it's potentially doable. It all comes down to all right, well, what do you want to, can what do you want is a big first thing. Right? Are you just not ready to retire? Well, then, not really worth considering very much. But I'm going to turn back on the other pair because I want to look at least at what I did for the color of her shorts versus, I want his jean jacket to be a brighter blue. Okay. Um, You know, yeah, like I say, if you don't want to, well then you don't consider it, right? You start looking for new work or doing whatever, and a lot of it has to do with whatever the terms of your severance are. And I know that I've read in coverage, and I I'm going to stick to what I've read in coverage because I don't want to say anything out of school that they might have someone might have told me. Um, but ZeniMax uh, had a union, or a union had been formed in the last couple of years, and it hadn't finished being processed and accepted by the company, and that complicates matters because many of the people who are laid off are part of the union, and the union gives them protections, but exactly what they are is not clear because the company never agreed to everything. So the union is negotiating on some things. For some of them, uh, say in particular, Bill was part of management, so he certainly was not uh, covered by the union. But some of the things the union creates uh, might mean extra benefits for Bill. When the union negotiates something, everyone gets it, whether they are members of the union or not. Usually. Anyway, so yeah, they're doing well. Uh, as far as I've heard, let's say I've talked directly with Jeff and with Ed frequently. They both are, as I say, going through these um, predictable stages um, of emotions that one goes through when you're part of a big layoff like that. So there, that's not untoward to ask. I don't have a lot that I can tell you, but I think that I can tell you that, and so I did. Oops. I know that neither Bill nor Ed nor Jeff are going to Gen Con. I'm pretty confident Rich isn't, but I don't know for sure. I haven't talked to Rich directly, and I don't think he'd be going to Gen Con, but maybe, and he certainly is a co-owner in a third party um, company whose name escapes me at the moment. But they make a third Mythic Thule, I think is the name of it, and they made a couple of other products too. So they may have something going on. I think they've got a, a what's it a distributor deal that represents them at the show, but I'm not sure. All right, what do we got going on here? We got camo pants. Sounds like I'm singing the Christmas song. Oh, camo pants, oh, camo pants. There we go. That's a good base color for that. Now I'm gonna have that faux Christmas carol. Oh camel pants, oh camel pants. I can't think of anything that rhymes with you. Let's see, let's see. What else? What else can I ramble on about? Another water this time. And I'm going to bring our ATM pair back up because I want to lift the color from her belt. Her Why are you doing that? Something weird's going on there. Hey, what? I'm going to take me off screen for a second. I'm going to close this up and relaunch it. Sometimes, with any program, sometimes weird stuff happens, and sometimes the easiest fix is just turn it off, turn it back on again. There we go. Because I wanted to get that color brown. Ooh. Turn them off again. I wanted that for down here. So I had more than a few. So I do these things regularly. These uh, uh, cartoon homages, and I post them, and I get very nice comments from folks about them. I got more than a few comments this week about the how much this cover, when it came out in 1989, inspired people. How many people had very strong memories of it, and how it got them to want to give Shadowrun a try. Which, the next time I'm talking to Larry Elmore, I'll tell him. I'm sure it will make him happy. What else can I talk about here? I suppose we should look up at the chat and see if anyone there has raised a question or made a comment that I think that will send me spiraling off on some other tangent of my own. Everyone's still talking about the knife. All right. Well, Good on you. No, but I do want her buckskin color for those wristbands. So we're going back again to grab the buckskin. Probably going to have to turn them on again because I want the gun colors to match the other gun colors. Maybe not match exactly, but to be very similar. All right. Oh, and I'm going to have to do the same kind of thing with the blasts from where he's firing. All right, so let's turn back on. Well, no. We'll finish the lower part first. I wonder who won the Diana Jones Award. Let's see, it's 7:30 here, which means that it's going to be 10:30 in Indy. Probably haven't announced it yet. The party's getting going. Matt Forback is standing at the entrance to, I can't remember the name of the bar where they have it. He's standing there greeting people, already a little drunk, handing out drink tickets, telling everyone to have a good time, and it's starting to get noisy. That's what's happening right now at the Diana Jones Awards. I always would go. That would be one of the. That's definitely one of the things I miss is going to Diana Jones Awards. Although the place is super noisy, there's a very small balcony, which is in an underpass that goes under the railroad tracks, and um, in on the weekends, I guess in the Indy probably all the time. There's lots of people riding around with very loud motorcycles and very loud cars, and they like to go under there because it creates a big echoey noise, which is not so fun. All right, well, I guess I could turn this pair on now. We won't see anything from them. They're all blocked out. Okay, they can stay on the rest of the time, which is good because I need to borrow some colors from them. There we go. We got Chris Andrew. Excited to meet Tracy Hickman. That would be. Have you never met Tracy before? That'll be fun. Tracy's a lot of fun to meet. and he'll tell you so himself. I, it really sounds like I'm ragging on Tracy, and I would. I'm only sorry he's not here for me to say that in front of his face. Tracy's awesome, and you're gonna. I don't know anyone who doesn't meet Tracy for the first time and walk away going, "My God, that was Tracy Hickman." So yeah, tell him I say hi, and I'm thinking good thoughts about him, and having a little fun at his expense. Tell him that he came up today at lunch. I had lunch with Jeff Grubb. Wednesdays I usually have lunch with Jeff Grubb and Steve Winter, and we, as usual, did. And Tracy came up uh, as part of conversation at lunch. Nothing big, nothing. In fact, nothing. I can't even remember exactly what it was. Nothing to report. But oh God, I'm seeing it somewhere on there. There we go. That little red thing was gonna drive me nuts. Uh, anyway, and I've been trying. Though I guess the thing you can tell Tracy if it comes up is that I would love to have him on as a guest again, and I'm going to send him another email about that after Gen Con. So he should be on the lookout for that, and if he doesn't want to do it, then he should start coming up with his excuse right now. Because I'm okay if he doesn't want to do it, but I demand a good excuse. And I think Tracy doesn't have his own table anymore. So if you're going to see Tracy, you're going to see Margaret. Tell Margaret I say hi too. I know that Margaret does not like doing things like podcasts and interviews, and I talked to her, or I guess I didn't talk to her, but mutual friends talked to her. Jeff Grubb talked to her for me when we were getting started, and she expressed that she was not interested, and so I have very pointedly not bothered her about it. But if she ever changes her mind, Margaret, if you ever change your mind, I would love to have you on as a guest on the show. And you should take the fact that I haven't contacted you mostly as my respect for your, in fact, completely as my respect for your wishes, and not as any kind of knock on whether or not I think you'd be a good guest. So let's see what else. What else? Coloring, coloring, coloring. I'm going to come back to this silvery color. Pull that up here. Over here. There. There we go. That's looking pretty good. Let's see. I'll definitely tell him Hickman, Grubb, Winter, myself all contributed to the gaming products, especially Dragonlance, that have given me so much joy. Thank you, Chris Andrew. I know that Jeff and Tracy, chief among those, but I'm glad to have a part in there too. What was my first job at Gen Con? All right, let me think about that for a second. Chris says, I met Margaret for the first time last year. I got so Star Trek that could think, all I could think of to tell her was that she looks a lot like herself. I I bet she thought that was very funny. And you know what? I bet she thought that was very charming too. All right, let's see. What do I need to do here? The flats are looking pretty good on him too. So I need to come up to his layer here and alpha lock that. Grab this color. And do the same thing here that I did with the magic. If you can, Chris, um, I bet it's sold out already. If they're still sell tickets to it, but if you can, go to Tracy Hickman's Killer Breakfast. It's usually early in the morning on Saturday, and you will have a terrific time. Have many stories to tell your friends. I'm not sure I want the muzzle flash to have the same yellow as the magic effect. Want a more, want a dirtier yellow. Go with the gunfire. There's going to be some extra color. That white along the middle is going to happen too, I think. It may not be white, but there's going to be something to give that idea of gunfire as opposed to just a big circle of magic. All right, so my first job at Gen Con, wasn't aware that Tracy still did the killer breakfast. I think he still does it. If he doesn't, he only stopped recently. I mean, it stopped being a Gen Con, a big Gen Con sponsored event, and just something that he did. So I don't know, but if you see Tracy on Thursday or Friday, ask him. Ask him. Um, my first job at Gen Con. Well, the first time I went to Gen Con, I was working at West End Games. So my first job at Gen Con was to work the West End booth and run demos of Star Wars and I don't think I did Torg. I think I did. I think I did Tank Girl, a Master Book game, um, and Paranoia. So, but mostly it was booth work. Mostly it was work in the booth and running demos. Most of what I've done at Gen Con has been work in the booth or running demos. All right, so there are our characters in the flats. It's time for me to take just a short little break. Not let I need to turn the camera off. Just rest the hand, let the pen recharge. We found out last week on the show that the pen will run out of juice if I don't let it recharge in the middle. Let's take them off the screen. Just back to me, which is perfect time to do that is when I'm rubbing my eyes. Ay, 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 ay. Let's see. What other things can I talk about while I'm letting that recharge and I'm taking my little break? Well, I got a package today or yesterday from Viz Media, who I do work for. I don't talk about that much. I don't know why. Not because I'm not proud of it, but I work doing English adaptation scripts for manga. Um, I'm not the translator. I work with a translator. I get a translated script from a manga and a copy of the Japanese book, and I rewrite the translation from technically correct to fun to read. That's that's basically my job is to take what is 100% correct and just kind of breathe a little fun, make it read well as a comic. And I've been doing that for the last 20 years or so. Worked on a lot of different things, and every once in a while, I get a contributor copy of a book that's about to come out. And that happened this week. I got a contributor copy of Volume 26 of Mobile Suit Gundam Thunderbolt, which is a really great series. I've been working on this series about 10 years, and 26 is the penultimate volume. 27 will be the final volume. So this is coming out soon. Since I got it, I think that probably means it's coming out in September or October. It will be in stores. But you can look for that. On the other hand, you can look for any of the previous 25 volumes. I was the English rewriter on all of them. And like I say, it is a great, great series. One of my favorites. So have a look for that. Mobile Suit Gundam Thunderbolt, Volume 26, coming to you real soon. It's not a sponsorship for anyone who's looking. That's me promoting my own work. And I get nothing out of that. I've been paid. I'm actually very sad. I've finished my work. I've done volume 27 already. It's done and it's in the process of getting lettered and laid out and going to the printer. That series was terrific all the way through, and I'm super sad that it's done uh, because I was really enjoying it. And they don't have anything new to hand me immediately afterwards, too. So see, I answered your question already, Michael. I have not started 27. I have finished 27. um, so I absolutely know how it ends. But then it came out in Japan, like 8 months ago. So almost everyone who, well, everyone over there knows how it ends. Anyone that is deep into the uh, translation culture knows how it ends. Um, but yeah, good book. I can absolutely say that book was great from the first page of volume 1 to the final page of volume 27, where it is the end. Um, Adam Savage just talked about how completion depression is a real thing. It is. You know what? I can tell you, it's a real thing as a collector, and it's a real thing as a creator. All right, let's get back. Let's get back to doing some work here, shall we? I'm going to come over here and hit the button, Frank. There we go. Okay, so finish the flats on all of these characters. Um, let's do the shading on these characters, and then we'll see. I probably will not do the background here on this stream since we're closing on 2 hours right now. By the time I finish this, we're probably going to be hitting 3 hours. Um, but I will try to do that before now. But I don't want this to carry over to another week of this kind of show. So I'll try and finish it up on my time. All right, so we'll start with the pair in the back like we did before. So we add another layer, which is going to be the layer where I do the shadowing and shading. Now, bear in mind, at least part of we can see at least part of him is going to be covered by the what I've been calling the ATM. But here we go. He's got the weird thing here. Now, here's where it gets a little strange, right? The cover is absolutely a painting, and there's a lot of things you do with color in a painting uh, that is subtle and detailed, and a lot of very a lot of shortcuts that you take when you're doing coloring for a cartoon. So, what we have for sure is that there's a light source on the left, a bright light source on the left, not just any light source. We've got it's daylight, but there's a light source on the left that's casting shadows and giving that yellow reflection. I don't know that I'm going to be giving the yellow reflection. That's maybe just a little too subtle for this cartoon. I don't know. I'm going to try it out. I'm going to try putting a little bit of it in there and see how that works. But right now, we're going to start. Putting it. Now, the thing I do want to do is make sure that these shadows feel strong, because that helps. That helps to show the idea that there's a strong light source right next to him. I remember just going back to, let's see, early Gen Con stories. Uh, Wanted to ask about my use of mask coloring in the title. Does it say mask coloring? It should say Shadowrun coloring. That's that's me forgetting to edit correctly when I created the event. So I'm gonna have to double check that. That will change if that's what it says. Uh, that will be changed in the archive. But thank you for the catch because I probably would not have gone back to look at it, and it would just be wrong and confusing for everyone forever. All right, you already see by making that very, very strong shadow, that gives already gives the idea that there's a light in front of him. But I'm definitely going to want to at least give a tryout to putting. I didn't. Did I not put any color in there? I didn't. Oh, I got to get that wrist thing. Oh, it's a wire on that one. I invented a whole new thing for that to be. Look at that. No, I do want it to be brighter. Let's go with the purple off his eye. Is that too purple? It is too purple. How about off his lips? That's a good color for that. So I want to take a bright yellow. What happens if I just put a little bit of that on the edge here? To show that he's looking at. Not sure how I feel about that. And I know what, I definitely don't like it being on that layer. So it's all coming out right now. Because that now goes back on our shading layer. Do it again, Stan, only do it right. We'll see. It's a very subtle kind of highlight. But it might be enough. It might still be worth it. But it's going in more important, particularly for the white hair, is this is the dark shading. And they're kind of like the other way. I'm going to put a couple of different dark. Unlike the skin, where I went straight in with a dark, I'm going to start with a lighter shadow. And then add some more to let you see that there's deeper shadow. Again, to highlight the fact that there's a lot of shadow being caused by that bright light. There. That's looking pretty good. No, no, I wasn't talking about using a mask, because that kind of mask is mask, not with a QU. And I don't use masks very often. I'm very simplistic in uh, my styles. I very much. I mean, the interesting thing for me, well, I do it the way I'm comfortable. But the thing I find interesting in talking about it is that the way I do my digital coloring is really applicable to the way anyone just learning to draw with any physical medium would do it. I have more in common with what people using physical media do than with most people doing digital. There we go. Yeah, it would. I mean, it would be great if I put that title up and it really meant something that you could learn from. But all you can really learn from it is to always triple check your text. That's what I didn't do there. Don't know if you can hear the helicopter in the background, but I sure can. Not the loudest one. I sometimes get these really super loud thumping helicopters going flying right over my apartment. Mostly they sound like they forgot to turn on their noise reduction features. I'm gonna have to come back and do that jacket too, but I think I'm gonna finish doing the belt and other stuff first. Jacket time. Beam, beam, dee, 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 jacket time. Beam, dee, dee, dee. See, I told you that wasn't going away. You thought I forgot because I wasn't singing it. It was there the whole time. Drawing and shading leather in these simplistic things is always tough because it's got so much fold and texture in it. My cousin, who is from Toronto, sent me a message today saying that she and her family were going into New York City. They were taking their kids to New York City later this summer, and did I have any recommendations? Um, because I used to live there, and I thought about it, and I wrote back to her saying, "It has been so long since I lived there. I don't know that anything that I would recommend to you, any of the things that I used to do, are still going to be around. And if they are, they're in the same places. But the one suggestion I make to everyone who goes to New York on a tourist is if you are looking for um, I think one of the best and one of the cheapest tourist attractions. You want a cheap like tour boat view of the city. Right? You want to take one of those. Uh, I mean, it's not a tour around the whole island, but you want to see Lower Manhattan. Take the Staten Island ferry, which is a commuter ferry. It's not a tour thing, and it's not priced like a tour thing. It's priced like a commuter ferry. In fact, when I was there, when I was growing up, uh, it was free if you walked on it. It cost money to bring a car on, but just kind of walking on was free. So it didn't cost you anything. And you get it goes out from South Street Seaport down at the southern end of Manhattan, and you get a great view of the southern end of Manhattan. Used to be the Twin Towers, now it's the new World Trade Center. You right by the Brooklyn Bridge. You get the view of Manhattan. You get the Brooklyn Bridge, and you go right by the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island on your way to Staten Island. It's about half an hour, 40 minutes one way, and then you get off the ferry. You get back on again, probably free or at least cheap these days, and you come back. You get the same view, only now you're going towards it. So since I just had that in my head, and I don't know that anyone is looking for advice from me on what to do on a trip to New York City, but there you go. I thought I'd share that more broadly. Somewhere in between those two. There we go. That's about the right color. It has been a long time since it's been a long time since I even visited New York City, let alone lived there. Although, once you're from there, you're always from there, and you always talk like you know what's going on. But I know from talking to my friends who still live there how many of the things I used to do aren't there anymore. And I'll be honest, not everything I used to do was the kind of thing you want to take your kids to. Not that it was so horrible, but I was a 20 something young man in the city. Also, I was a 20 something young nerd in the city. So I did a lot of nerdy things. I was just, in fact, you know what? Last week, I guess, someone on Facebook made a post about the bookstore, The Strand, down in um, Greenwich Village. I used to go in there all the time, and it had been across the street from Forbidden Planet comic and geekery store. Apparently, Forbidden Planet is now moved across the street, and the two stores are neighbors. But the Strand was a great, great bookstore. Not as good as Powell's down in Portland here, but not that far off. So if you are any kind of bibliophile, you go uh, down to Greenwich Village and go to the Strand. I just saw what you wrote, Chris, about the elf running low on power and trying to find a port to charge up. You know, I was saying this last week or something like it last week when while I was drawing this, and I was saying something similar earlier tonight. Right, the the version of the future that we see here was the version as seen through 1988-89 lenses. Right? We had no idea about how wireless the future was going to be. So much of cyberpunk and that kind of near futurism was about, splicing into cables and jacking in physically, plugging yourself in, and just thinking about how every time now you look at it and it just is so weird. Why is nothing wireless? Why is nothing wireless? Or we've certainly gotten to the point where we've got, you know, uh, just kind of magnetic charging. Why do they have to plug everything in? Very close, very close. Last couple of things on this guy, and then we can move on to her. Yeah, he seems about right. Yeah, no, you're right. That doing wireless stuff does not lend itself well to exciting cinema in the same way that watching Sir Patrick Stewart put his fingers against his temple uh, is not super high action uh, telepathy. He goes like, mm, and when I think about the New York that I knew, because I never actually lived in Manhattan either. I was a suburb kid who went into Manhattan, but I did the fair bit in the late '80s. And when I think about it, the movies that come up, the two movies that give me that feeling most are After Hours, Martin Scorsese film, which is not especially well known. If you haven't seen it though, you really should go look it up. After Hours, starring Griffin Dunne and Roseanne Arquette and a few other big name people turned out to be big name people. Um, Shot in uh, uh, the just that area in uh, Greenwich Village that I used to walk around a lot. That and the Fisher King, Robin Williams and Jeff Bridges and Mercedes Rule. I think Mercedes Rule. If it's not whoever it is, I apologize for not being sure of that because she was great in that movie. Everyone was great in that movie, but the New York that she and Jeff Bridges live in, and uh, Robin Williams' character comes to regain his life in it very much feels like the city that I spent a lot of time in. Her hair, kind of like his hair, is going to require a couple of different levels of shading to get right. That's often true about hair. You don't want that flat feeling of just one color and one shade if you want it to feel have it all a feeling that you that feels true. Her skin shading is like she's catching light from the other side, right? He's got the light that's coming off from the left. She's got the light that's coming from the world that they've gone down the alley. So shadowing actually, I want to undo all that. Yeah, I do, because the shadows for her are going to be on the left side. That, like that. There's a funny bit on Graham Norton about the power pose of the X-Men. Yeah, Graham Norton, brilliant, brilliant. And James McAvoy is always funny when he's on. What was everyone's favorite superhero growing up? Asked Chris Andrew. Mine was and still is Spider-Man. I love that he had real-world problems of a young adult. Spider-Man. Definitely good. Do love old Webhead. My favorite superhero. I mean, my very first favorite superhero was definitely Spider-Man too. Um, but interestingly, the Spider-Man the comics that I had, um, were uh, that I gotten from a neighbor. One of those hand me down piles. Had a bunch of interesting things. Um, the Spider-Man comics that they passed on to me were early Marvel team ups. So I didn't get a lot of um, the continuity kind of Peter Parker and his problems. And it was always who's he teaming up with next. But I loved it. Like I was a huge that still is my favorite Spider-Man series. I love those Marvel team ups, and the ones that I got from the neighbor went all the way back, like down to Marvel team up number 7 and 9, and really early stuff. It was art by Gil Kane. So yeah, so that's I guess my answer is going to be in two parts, which is it's good I suppose when I'm trying to have an entertaining show here for people to listen to. I want a complex answer. It takes a while to do. And hmm, the point where I forgot to put the color in. So from those very early comics that I got, uh, I liked, I liked, and the Spider-Man that I got introduced to was the one from the old 1960s TV series. That was my first Spidey, and I like those too. I really liked Spider-Man, but um, from the comics, weirdly, this is a weird one for a kid to gravitate towards. But my favorite of the comics were a couple of issues of that. In fact, they were the two of the first three Jim Starlin, Adam Warlock. They were in Strange Tales. It was before Warlock got his own series again. And so when I started getting into comics and buying back issues, those were the ones that, well, kinda. There's an intermediary phase between this, but of the things I really loved and the things I wanted to find out more about was Adam Warlock. By the time I got into comics as a into comics thing, um, it was it was the what we now call the new X Men. What are now the X Men, right? Because the neighbor had left me a bunch of X Men comics, but they were old X Men. In fact, no, they weren't that old. They were during the period between X Men 62 and 93 when they were doing just reprinting old X Men stories, the original Kirby and then Werner Roth and the old original X Men. So my introduction to the X Men were those stories from 1966, 67, and I liked them. I liked them fine. I liked, you know what? I liked Cyclops. He was the character that I felt the most attached to from the early X-Men. And so I remained attached to him long after everyone else decided that he was just a schlub. I like I like Cyclops. I like Scott Summers. They really fucked with him at Marvel over the last decade. I don't like what they've done with him, but I was a big Cyclops fan. So that, like I say, by the time I got interested in collecting, and started buying back issues, I was trying to pick up and the the Byrne, what had just become. Byrne was brand new. Like he'd only been on the comic 2 issues when I dove in, but I recognized it right away as I love this, and I my first big hunt was to complete my X Men collection, my new X Men, all new, all different X Men collection. But I also bought a bunch of the back issues of the original X Men too. In fact, when I started, it was still a bi-monthly comic. It hadn't even gone monthly again yet. So, not that sound like I'm trying to pull the I was into it before it was cool. But I guess the real truth of it is I got into it just as everyone else was realizing how cool it was too. I wasn't ahead of the game. I wasn't ahead of the crowd. I was with the crowd. But I was with the crowd. I didn't need to be told about it later. I think all of those are a little too light. Yeah, but at the same time that I was collecting those, to go back to it, the same time I was collecting those X Men, I was also uh, collecting, trying to complete a run of Warlock. Yeah, that's right. Um, as I say, the Jim Starlin Warlock. And it turns out it wasn't that hard. No one else was looking for it at the time. Chris says the Black Suit Spider-Man storyline that eventually turned into Venom. Yeah, you know what? That was closer to when I was phasing out of buying comics regularly than when I was at my height. I certainly was still buying through all of the original Black Suit era, but the amount that I was buying was starting to dwindle, and the number of things that I was collecting was shrinking. Secret Wars. Yeah, Secret Wars was definitely one of the things where they really started to lose me. I get it, right? Uh, I get how exciting that would have been to me if I was even 5 or 6 years younger than I was, but I wasn't, and I was getting ready to actually try to get work in the industry, and uh, naturally, understandably, correctly, fail miserably. I did, however, I don't know that I've ever told this story here. I may have, because it's a good story, and I tell it every chance I get. Um, after I finished my 5 year degree, I was just doing kind of bumming around jobs, and my dad was kind of hoping that I'd take a little, maybe a more serious step or two. But he knew that I liked comics, and I wanted to do something with comics. And he had, of course, had no idea whether or not I had any shot at it. And but one of the guys he worked with, he was talking at work with one of his friends about me and my situation, and his neighbor, his friend's neighbor, he said, "Well, my neighbor works in comics, and he I know that he is always happy to help young people, help them, give them some advice, look at what they do, and give them feedback. And if you'd like, I could certainly ask him." And it turned out that it was a guy named Stan Goldberg, uh, who did a lot of work for Marvel in the '60s as a letterer and inker and artist on, well, letterer and inker on lots of things, an artist on some of their romance and teen romance kind of titles, like Millie the Model. He did a lot of work on Millie the Model, and he was, however, most famous for the work that he did for Archie Comics. Had a long run doing uh, Archie Comics. He did the syndicated newspaper strip for them uh, for years, and he did a lot of Archie Comics stories, a lot of stories that appeared in the various Archie books in the '70s and '80s and into the '90s. And so my father asked me if I was be interested, and uh, I'll be honest. At the time, I didn't know who he was. We didn't have the internet, so I couldn't easily look him up. But I was certainly interested. You know, he he told me, my friend says that this guy. Interesting that this guy's name would be Stan. My name, not Stan. I didn't get it from him though. I already had that nickname. Um, but interesting that I was certainly interested, right? I'd find out. Sure, I want to meet someone who's working in the industry. I'd love to meet it. So I brought my little portfolio of stuff together, and I took it over, and I went to Stan Goldberg's house, and just lived in a Long Island neighborhood, uh, like you do, right? Working in comics was a job like any, paid pretty well during the time he was doing it. Um, and and got to meet him. And he looked at my stuff, and he had some uh, very useful advice. Uh, one of my biggest I could have. So what the opportunity I passed up. You know what? I don't think about it now. I don't think about it. I made the right call at the time, but looking back at it, if I had another shot, I would make a different call now. Um, he he looked at what I did, and I had some like full page continuity pieces and some comic stories, but they were in my style, right? They were not in standard Marvel style, and there was no place for that in the industry in those days. This was before anything like alternative covers or funny books were coming back. It was all John Byrne and George Perez and like that was it. There was no room for doing other things. Um, but he looked at it, and uh, the thing that I was about to say, my big thing that I turned my nose up at was he looked at some of the comic strips that I'd done some comic strips in college, and he said, "I think you've got something here. Like I don't know that this particular thing would be, but I think he liked what I'd done, and he liked the way I did it. So, even if it's not this particular strip, I think that you've got the makings to do this." But I didn't want to do newspaper comic strips. So, and the thing was, he offered. So here's the thing. Here is the thing I've been not saying. Right? He offered to help me uh, put together a package to submit to the syndicates, and to introduce me so I wouldn't have to go in blind. To introduce me to the people he worked with, and other people, and if that didn't work, other people at other syndicates, to make introductions and get me past the first couple of gates of that well gated community. And I said, well, I don't want to do daily strips. I want to do full comics. And he's like, well, all right, well, I don't actually know much about it. I did that for Marvel for years, but I haven't done that in a long time. My work with Archie, I certainly think you can do if you can get something into the Archie house style, I can make some introductions for you there. But if you want to do something like it in Marvel, I have no idea what they would do, but I can get you. I can call my friend Johnny. I bet he'd be willing to have a look and talk to you about it. And I said, "Oh, does he work at Marvel?" So yeah, he's worked at Marvel a real long time. His name is Johnny Ramita. It was John Ramita Sr. And so while I'm sitting there in his den, he picks up the phone and he calls Marvel. He says, "Hey, Johnny, how's it going? I got this kid in my office. Would you be willing to look and talk to him about it?" And Johnny said, "Sure." So I got to go up and take my portfolio into the Marvel offices in Manhattan, and have a uh, get a personal review and conversation by John Romita Jr., who was one of the art directors of Marvel at the time, uh, which was great. But it ended just the way you might think it would, in that there wasn't anything for me, and for all the reasons I just said earlier. It's just he looked at it and he said, "Yeah, I just don't see what we've got here." He said, "If you were interested, I would say that you could apply for our, we for an internship here. It wouldn't be paying, but and also we just finished picking the new intern, so it wouldn't be for another year. But what you get to do is learn the learn the craft thing, do some lettering, learn some about lettering, learn about inking, kind of get people around here who would help you out." I said, "Wow, I mean, that sounds awesome, except that I can't wait a year, and I kind of need to get paid. I've now got student loans that I have to pay." He said, "Yeah, I understand. Usually we get students to take these internships." Um, but he was super nice. He took me out to lunch, introduced me to some other folks. No one else famous was there at the time. But I got to have a private uh, portfolio review and lunch with John Romita Sr. So that was pretty cool. And I now have a story that I can tell about it. Maybe that's the biggest thing I got out of that was this story that you just heard here on 50 Years in the Dungeon. What up, what up, up? Given where everything else in my career has gone, if I had it all to do again, I would have taken Stan Goldberg up on his offer. I should have taken Stan Goldberg up on his offer. But who knows what would have happened. Tell you what wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have wound up working at TSR, working on Dungeons and Dragons. And I don't want to give that up, so I don't regret my decisions. There we go. She's looking pretty good. They're looking pretty good. Let's turn on the shooter. We'll do him, and then that'll wrap us up for the evening. Because we're definitely pulling into the 3 hour mark. Yeah, so I mean, the thing was, I knew John Romita as a name. I hadn't. Let's say I was a big comic fan, but of all the things I hadn't dived back into deep was early Spider-Man. So I really was not as familiar with John Romita's stuff. I do wish that I had been able to speak more. Speak a little, kind of just be more aware of what he'd done and say something cooler to him. Like, I wish I could have been less of an idiot, but I was an idiot. All right, so his skin, he's a little darker skinned. Still using just the basic Caucasian guy skin tone, but a slightly different shadow. Yeah, yeah, that was definitely a. There are several things that I, in my life, not just comics or drawing or career related, and several times where I have said things like, this is what I want, or more importantly, this is what I don't want for my future. And it's amazing to me how many of them are exactly where my future wound up going, and often because that's where it turns out I did want to go there. I just didn't. I just didn't know it at the time, or I wasn't smart enough to read the signposts at the time and understand that that's where I wanted to go. Everyone, we're dumb. We're dumb when we're kids. You can't do better than you know. So, as I, 20%. How did it drop so fast? All right, let's let that charge a little. I'm not done here, but at least I didn't tell him he looked like himself. No, no, I didn't do that. You're right. You're right. I wasn't as dumb as you. And I say that in the lovingest way possible. um, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's really funny to me the number of things in my life that I I don't want to say I turned my nose up, but I pointedly said I don't want this thing. And it took me 15 to 20 years to find out, oh, I kind of did want that thing. That's the thing I want. Oh well, I was as dumb a kid as anyone. Um, I mean, among the other things were single panel cartoons. So I got Stan Goldberg also definitely talked to me about doing single panel cartoons and applying, doing submitting cartoons to the New Yorker. It was still the era where there were a few different uh, publications that you could go around and submit in Manhattan. That you go in on Wednesday and submit your cartoons and try and sell them. And no, I specifically said, just I don't I don't even have a clue about single panel cartoons. That has you know I I really don't want to do uh, syndicated strips, but I really don't want to do single panel cartoons. And now, holy cats, I spend most of the comics I've done in the last 10 years have been single panel cartoons, and I've got a lot of thoughts about it, and I like doing them. And I turns out, yeah, yeah, that's a path if I would definitely trod. Um, I'm not the New Yorker at this point in my career. I'm not New Yorker style. It's just the gags I make are not New Yorker gags. When I come up with them, I do submit that. I have submitted more than a few to the New Yorker, and they have all been not accepted. Fair enough. Um, but yeah, no, certainly I look at the fact that I had someone who offered to help me get into these two areas that um, I kind of I wasn't rude or anything, but I kind of said that's awesome, really I appreciate it, but no, thank you, dumb kid. All the things, one of the things that I've thought about doing in the last year or two is putting together a a class, an e class. I don't know what, just kind of what's the phrase they use for them? The um, a workshop or a webinar about just about doing single panel cartoons and tips to improve your single panel cartoons. What to think about, how to go about it. Not so much. I don't want to teach people to draw like me or do it exactly like me, but the thought. So much of art in any of these forms, so much of cartooning is about learning to think in a certain way, which most of the people involved have in common. They just then do it their own way. Um, is there a reason the shooter has the Austrian flag? I don't know, uh, because that's what Larry painted on his arm. Is there a reason Larry painted that on his arm? I don't know. um, I imagine Larry having a background with historical, with friends and playing historical minis. I imagine that he knows that's what it was. I imagine that he put it there, that it didn't happen by accident. Um, why is it there? I don't know. Um, yeah, yeah. I remember also talking to a friend about another, like a guy who was uh, um, he worked at the comic shop, and he was about 15 years older than us, 15, 20 years older than us, and which made him old. And we're talking about him and his life, and I was saying, man, one thing I think he's awesome. I like him a lot. But one thing I don't want in my life is to get to his age and still be working, and not having a regular paycheck, right? Not knowing where my money's coming from necessarily week to week and month to month. I don't want that. Oh boy, I have purposely chosen that for the last 15 years since uh um since the last since last go 20 years, right? Since I got let go by Upper Deck, I have chosen that. That's what I want. Not that I want that uncertainty, but I want you know the freelance career, the independent artist career. So I often think about my saying, "Oh boy, that's I do not." Well, that's one. I tell you, one thing I don't want is that idiot. I'm such a dummy, such a dummy. And you know what, Charlie, wherever you are, I'm sorry that I in any way be, cast aspersions at the way you lived your life. I'm just a big dummy. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, we've hit 3 hours now. I don't know if I should wait for the pen to recharge. It doesn't take long. It should be pretty close by now, but I don't know how long I should hang out. Well, I should hang out and finish this, right? Right? Yeah. I mean, you guys can leave. If you guys all leave, well, then it's time for me to go. As long as you're hanging out with me, I'll keep hanging out. At least until we finish this part of the drawing. All right, how is it doing? It's up to 68%. All right, let's come back here. Told you this thing charges super fast. All right, so yes, so that's what Larry put on his arm. Now maybe it's not. Maybe that's just a red, a white, and a red stripe that are not a single piece. All right, there it is on his lower arm too. I didn't put that in there. So could just be that I mistakenly turned those stripes into the Austrian flag. One of those things is probably true. Or one of those things is probably the answer. What's true is I don't know. You probably want to turn that a little darker. So yeah, there's a couple of deep dark truths about Stan. I Stan Goldberg passed away uh, in 2020 or 2021, and uh, I only ever met him that one time, but uh, I carried everything he said with me, and I remembered it always. More and more, as I realized what a schmuck I was, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could bump into him like as a guest at a convention somewhere and tell him about this and thank him for being so helpful to an idiot kid who didn't listen to him. Anyway, I heard that he was ill. When I heard that he was going into hospice, and this is through I think the National Cartoonist Society, and it gave an address to send cards and well wishes. Said he wasn't going to be taking any having any visitors, but you could send cards and well wishes here, and they would get to him. And I did, but unfortunately, uh, not soon enough. They got returned to me, and I, I read shortly after that he had passed away. Did I do this on the wrong layer? I certainly did. Wow, I did all of that on the wrong layer. All right, here's the good news. I can lift those and put them on the right layer, most of those. cut those and paste them onto their own layer, and I'm going to bring them back down to the pair. And I'm going to merge that. Come on, there we go. Now it's on the right layer. No, no. Turn that on before you do that. It's got to, if you do something and it's not visible, it doesn't happen. There we go. And now it all lives on the correct layer. Now I did these arm colorizations on the wrong layer. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it's the same thing, but I can't ever get the flat back. I don't really want it. I guess if I ever want to do the flats, I'm going to have to uncolor that. All right, let's go. We're doing, yeah, so 68%. Good, 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 good. Good, good, good. So yeah, I get a lot of cool stories out of it. I get to say that I got to go to the Marvel offices. Of course, I got to go back to the Marvel offices when I was working at Wizards, and we did the Marvel Saga game. I got to go back to the Marvel offices as a licensee, but as an artist, I got to go in and meet one of the greats, get taken out to lunch. It was a good day for a dumb kid. See, my new job is the art director with the Cinemax 4. So the funny thing about it, you know what, I'm a terrible pick as an art director for several reasons. Um, One of which being I don't want that job. I was offered the job to be the art director for Monty Cook Games when they were just starting up. I did a contract with, yeah, I mean, I've known Monty a long time, but he and Shauna gave me a contract for uh, uh, a while. I think it was an open ended until while they were when they were just getting going. They needed uh, some help doing several different things. One of them was art director, and they really wanted me to be the art director. And I told them I really didn't want to be the art director. But there were some other things that they had going on that I did want to do or that I was interested in. And so they uh, they contracted me to come in and do all of them, but the main thing was to do the art direction until they could get a full time art director, and uh, and so I did. I was the art director for about 6 months, maybe less. Um, During the it was after Numenera had come out. They were doing more Numenera products. It was certainly by that time Bruce Cordell was on staff with them. Um, and of course, I mean, I knew Bruce too from TSR and Wizards. Uh, but when they got Bear, who is their art director, who's great, uh, turns out they didn't really need those other things. Not like they were selling me a bill of goods, but over the 6 months they realized there's a lot. You know, they were a small company growing fast, and we had talked about several things for me to do. Like I say, several things that I was interested, and one of which I really wasn't. Turns out the only one they really needed was the art director job. So when Bear got the job, we wrapped up my work with Monty Cook Games. Though I've still done other things with them from time to time, and they remain some of my favorite people. Um, and the reason that I don't want to be an art director is that there are parts of the job I like, and then there are other parts that I just not only don't I like, I'm not good at. And there's a lot of the graphic design part of it, and in a larger company, that's okay because the art director is mostly telling other people what to do. But in a small company, the art director has to do that stuff, and only occasionally, like they have to, and they wind up having to license out the fun stuff and do the not so fun stuff, like get the illustrators to do all the artwork, but doing the graphic design and the page building and all the other kind of graphic art director stuff, you got to do that. That's what you get paid for. I'm no good at that. Not only, as I say, not only don't I like it, I'm no good at it, and I know it. I I'm at best mediocre at it. Uh, and that's giving me some credit I probably don't deserve. I think I'm actually I, I'm not as bad as someone who's never done it, but I'm not good at it, and I really don't like it. So my my former ZeniMax friends, I will certainly work with them if they have anything going on, and if they need someone to temporarily fill some spots, I'll certainly grab those too. But you are not looking at the next. First of all, they're not putting a company together. And second of all, I'm not going to be their art director if they do. And I'll tell you what, that is one thing that I will not wind up some number of years in the future saying, "Wow, look at what I said. Look at what I turned down." You know, I could have, in theory, I could have been working for Monty Cook Games all this time as they uh, reached, as they exploded and have been doing great. I could have been on the staff. I don't regret that one at all. I would, let's say, I would not have enjoyed being art director, and I wouldn't be near as good as Bear is. Monty Cook Games would have suffered for having me in that position based on where they are now. I think it's funny. Look here. You look down at the bottom of that, below the circle, and the top row of little swatch colors are the colors I've most recently used. The Then there's the word, it says iconic, and then there's rows of colors. That's my basic palette. That's what I use for most of my drawings. That's the starting colors I use for picking things. But one of the things you'll notice is none of the colors is purple. Every time I need purple, I go out to the wheel and find the purple that I want. And I find it funny. I find it odd that I've never put a purple in my basic palette. That was not done on purpose, and yet that's how it is. Ain't life funny? Yeah, getting the camo on those pants. I think I need to put the basic camo on the flat layer. Yeah. And then when I go for the shading, I'm going to need two different shading colors. One for the basic green and one for the splotchy camo splotch green. Because I do coloring this weird um, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a word I say all the time. Um, Not digital is the meaning that I'm trying to come up with. Um, Kind of traditional media way. I know that's not what it is. I know that's not what I say all the time. But right now, I've been doing this 3 hours, and my brain has decided that it's going to have the rest of the evening off. Analog? Analog is probably the word I was looking for. Yes, I'm going to say yes. That is exactly the word I was looking for. That is, and that's the word I use all the time. Yep, analog. Thank you kindly for helping my poor, tired brain. There we go. All right, so now we're going to go back to the shading layer. I'm I'm looking up here. I missed a few things. Um, what was the core mechanic of the Saga system? Oh, okay. Well, we'll get to that in a second. Uh, Chris says you've had some incredible experience. Be a great guest on this podcast. Oh, have them call me sometime. I'd love to be on it. Michael tasks me with dropping it in their ear to try and make their own. You know what? I'll do it, but it's not like let's say Bill is already making some products, but um, I think really the biggest thing is the most likely scenario where that happens, where they start their own company of any sort, is if they decide to retire, because there's no money in starting your own company, and none of them are sitting on just fat wads of cash. So I think you can count on seeing products out there from Bill. Certainly, there are some already, and I know he's planning to do more. And uh, Jeff Grubb. Jeff's a tough one to predict. Um, Jeff really hates doing things that he's not getting paid for. That's not exactly true, but it's a shortcut kind of true, right? He's he wants a project that's going to be a project, and uh, so I think he in particular is not likely to do his own stuff unless he decides he's retired, and then he can do it because he wants to, not because it's a new company. Um, Ed Stark, I think Ed's a maybe. Uh, I think it depends on a lot on the also on the answers of whether he decides that he wants to consider retirement, and if he does, then one of the things he might consider is, well, he could call it retirement. He could trigger the financial aspects of retirement, but really um, do uh, his own startup thing. Think of all the people. In fact, I say I think I know for sure. I know 100% of all the people we've talked about so far. Ed is the one who is most interested in trying something like getting a Kickstarter going. But he's never done anything like that before, and I've talked to him about it some. So um, I would not be surprised if somewhere in the relatively near future, uh, Ed starts to organize some kind of Kickstartery thing, or tries to organize that group into doing some kind of Kickstarter thing. But whether or not he is successful in that, well, that's up to the rest of the group. And like I say, part of the problem is that he's never done that before, and I have. It's not coming out exactly the way I want, but that's all right. It's not coming out terrible either. No, not that color. That color. Hmm. Tell you what, I am changing my mind on how I'm going to do this. You know how I talked last week about the easy way and the difficult way to do shading, and I like to do it the difficult way? As true as that is, this is a case where I'm going to do it the smart, easy way for the camouflage. Make much more sense to do it that way. And how is that way, Stan? How are you going to do it? Well, I'm going to take a very dark color, in this case a dark green, and I'm going to give it its own layer. And I'm going to go back over the camouflage pants, and I'm going to draw all the areas I want in shadow and just cover them with this stupid, thick, dark color which blocks out everything. And then, after I've done that, I'm going to reduce the opacity on that stupid, thick, dark layer until you can see through it, and it creates the feeling of a shadow, the illusion of a shadow. Or, not even the illusion, a shadow, the way it's created in real physics. And as you can see, this is so much faster than what I usually do. And yet, I keep doing it my other way because I like doing it that way. But there are situations like this. There are situations where time is of the essence. I just have to do it quickly. And there are situations like this camouflage where this is going to get me the result I want. And doing it the way I usually like is either is I'll never figure it out. I may not ever figure it out. I was not getting it the way it was going before. Um, I'll never figure it out, or it will take a really long time. So this is kind of a combination of time is of the essence, and this will work where my way won't. All right, so now I mean, in theory, that's not terrible. But when I take this layer and I drop the opacity, you can start to see through it. And this is going to get down to, yeah, certainly under 50, probably, yeah, maybe 40%. You see, now we get that sense of a shadow. 35% is looking about right. 40% is looking too much. 30, yeah, there we go. Let's 36%. 35%, no. 36%. And now, yeah. Yeah, no, is it too subtle? It's too subtle. 40% is looking a little more obvious. 50% is looking quite distinct. I think we're going to 50%. There we go. Done. Michael says you never use your own money. Yeah, well, that's not true. But hopefully you don't put yourself in a you, you, you don't use your own money. You don't bet the farm. You use your money wisely. You decide you want to invest in something, and so you do. And what you're investing in is yourself and your opportunity. And you want to get someone with money that they want to invest in it. If you have money that you want to invest in it, well, that's fine. But do it smart. And of course, the hope is that, particularly this day and age, that you do some kind of crowdfunding and you have a crowd that's interested in funding you. That would be nice. Hey, speaking of crowdfunding, that's a segue to something I wasn't planning to talk about. But I will now. Um, I have a few things coming up. One is going to be a crowdfunding campaign that begins in September. And I'm going to be doing a backer kit uh, campaign for a children's book of mine. I don't know if I don't think I mentioned this before. It's called Little Witch Willow, and it's going to be part of a backer kit Palooza event. Backer Kit does a lot of paloozas. This is going to be print and Palooza. Printopia. No, it's a Topia event. It's going to be Printopia. Everyone's doing different print books. Mine is going to be Little Witch Willow, and it's going to happen in September and October. So just a heads up that that's coming. He's looking about done. There. Okay, so those are our here's where we're at after 3 hours. We've got our 3 main characters colored. So I'm getting ready. I was getting ready to wrap up now. Here we go. This is there's where we're at. So let me continue here. I'm going to what is Little Witch Willow about? So Little Witch Willow was something I did for in October a few years back. When everyone else is doing Inktober, I did a single. Well, let's say it's not a single image because some of them were multiple frames on a page. I did a page a day from what turned out to be a 31 page story. The story is in pantomime. There are no words. It's images only, and it's a story of a little witch. And the book is called Little Witch Willow's Big Day, and lots of was. I don't have an interview guest, so I've got to tell you guys something. All right, I'll come back to this. You know what? I will show you Little Witch Willow because it's done. It's been done for a couple of years, and I did a down here. You can see on the left the 2 green boxes. I've done 2 Little Witch Willow stories, and this is the first one. This is Little Witch Willow's Big Day, and so each day there are 31 pages. If you can see here, scroll down. We start at Little Witch Willow 01, and we go down to Little Witch Willow 31. Throughout the month of October, I did one of these a day. And it's just a story of this little witch and her big day. She gets up, she brushes her teeth magically, brushes her cat. It's all pantomime. So she is just kind of following. At first, you have no idea what's going on. She's just getting up and doing her stuff. And some of it you get to figure out what's going on. And now's when it starts to get closer to a story. They head out and they go to the cemetery. And she's standing around. She conjures up a little hourglass. She's waiting, and hand pops out of the grave. So she helps it out, and it's her friend Billy Bones. And so she wants to show him something, and she shows him that everyone's dressed in costumes because it's Halloween. And I don't. This I can explain to you. If you're watching, you kind of have to intuit this. The real world, people in the real world here are in blue. The kind of the magical world is in green. And so she poofs them so they look like they're in costume to everyone else, but they're really just themselves. And they go and they see trick-or-treating, so they want to try trick-or-treating. And I'll stop there so I don't spoil the whole story for you, but that's Little Witch Willow. And so I've had that around, and I've been thinking about doing something with it. And so I'm taking advantage of this, having heard about this Printopia. Like, oh, well, I've got a story that's ready to go that I would love to do, and if I can get the crowdfunding, I'll do it. And if I don't, well, maybe I'll print it someday anyway, or maybe I'll try it again. There's a lot of maybes. There's a lot of ifs around this. Several people want me to add words, right? To make this give their a story uh, in a written story rather than just a visual um, pantomime story. In fact, I've had well-meaning people say, this would be great if you wrote a story for it, and they don't they don't generally like my answers. Like, there is a story. You know what the story is. You can tell me what happened. There's a story there. You looked at it. It's like, yeah, I know, but you should put a story there. What they mean is they're not comfortable with there not being words. I'm comfortable with it, and I like it that way. I'd like it to succeed that way. I think that if it doesn't succeed in the Printopia, then I will think about uh, taking another shot at it, writing words, laying it out, uh, relaying it out as a book with words. Anyway, that's coming. Come back here. Come back to our drawing. There we go. And what else? Do I want to tell you this now? I mean, I guess now that I've mentioned it, I kind of have to. I can't leave you hanging. Um, all right, here's the story that I want to tell with, and when I present this to the world, here's the story I'm going to tell. That last year, 2025, was a terrible year for me, like financially. Uh, Work dried up. A lot of things happened. I needed help, and people were very helpful to me. I had a GoFundMe in the fall. I had a bunch of people contribute to that. I got through it. 2026 has been much better, and it's been pretty. It's been pretty good. Hasn't been great, and I'm still catching up from 2025. But it's 2026 has been better. But in the last month or so, a couple of things have happened. Right, I've got my car needs some repairs that I can't really afford to give it. Have some dental things I need to get done that I could get done over a long period of time as I kind of pay it off bit by bit. Kind of be better if I just had some money to pay. But I don't feel like I should go and do another GoFundMe. I'm not in that kind of need. Thankfully, hopefully, I won't be. But there's another thing in that 2026 has been really good so far, but all the jobs I've been working on are ending. So, what does the tail end of 2026 look like? I don't know. This Little Witch Willow crowdfunder might have a good portion to say about that. But in any case, right now, I don't need a GoFundMe. I don't need that. But I do need to raise some money. I need to generate some money so I can get the car thing fixed. It's not like well, I don't think I don't think the car is in imminent danger of just stopping working, but I certainly don't want to take it on any long trips. And I'm very careful about driving it around because it needs some work done, and it's going to be a couple $1,000s to get the work done. So what I'm thinking about doing, what I'm going not thinking about, what I'm putting together now to announce publicly later this week or next week is a couple of different um, quick projects. One of which is just going to be a little bundle of stickers. Um, there's going to be a bundle of 3 stickers, two or three stickers. I think 3 stickers for $10. Maybe usually I sell them for $5 each. So I don't sell enough stickers for that to matter. I got a new sticker. It's a Jimothy sticker. Everyone loves Jimothy. I got to have a new sticker. It's going to be a 3 sticker bundle, $10. The point being, This is a special price. This is for now because I need to make some. I need to lay in some cash right now. So here's a. It's like a bundle, or it is. I mean, it's a sticker bundle. It's a. Here we go. It's just short time deal. Not a big ask. Buy some stickers. They will help me get my car fixed. I forgot about the fact that I kind of. I'm looking at the fact that this year it's time for me to get a new computer, and that's also not in the budget. So depending on how successful all these various things are, will depend on what I get and what I don't get. So sticker bundle is first. That will be the first one coming. That will probably be next week that I announce that. It'll be a Jimothy sticker together with the probably. I mean, I want something that has that same kind of cute feel. So probably the Otter Dragon sticker that I have, and the owlbear eating ice cream sticker bundle. Come get it. I can, in fact, you know what? Here's another thing. I can show you the stickers. So come to the sticker, and this is Jimothy. That's what the Jimothy sticker is going to look like. And the owlbear eating ice cream sticker looks like that. And the Otter Dragon sticker looks like that. So I think they make a good trio together. So I'm going to make a bundle of those and sell them with my little sad story. And then the second thing is I've been doing and I talked about this before, right? And Michael has kept poking me. Michael keeps poking me in the friendliest, business savviest way to do character drawings, like quick, cartoony character drawings. Where can we buy those? Well, I'll be able to tell you that when I announce it. I don't know the answer to that right now, but the answer will be easy. I'll have a link. It's not now, so I don't have an answer now. So usually I'm charged for those kind of cartoons about $75 if it's in black and white, and $100 if it's in color. So I'm going to put a sale on where I will do them. I'll do you a color one for $50, and no black and white sales. $50 if you only want it black and white. I'll stop there. But $50 for a cartoon character design, and buy as many as you want, and go from again with the main point being I'm doing this to raise some money. So market my library. I'm talking to Troy about that, Michael. So working on it. I don't know if that makes you feel that much better, but I'm talking to Troy about it. It's not even like yeah, good idea, Michael. I'll work on it. I'm working on it. Yeah. So there you go. That's kind of the news of things that are coming up soon, or announcements of things that are coming up soon. Gonna have a Kickstarter in September. Gonna have a sticker bundle probably next week, and maybe next week or the week after I will announce the character design sale and start making posts about it, hoping to let people know about it. But there, you guys know first. The end. All right, there we go. So let's wrap this up here. We're now closing in on 4 hours. 4 hours. I've done the coloring for our main characters. Got them all done, flats and highlights. All I have to do is the background, and it'll be done. And I'm going to try and get that done over the weekend when I'm not at Gen Con. So there you go. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and hanging out with me. I've had a very good 4-hour evening. This has been a lot of fun, as usual. Chris says, count you in for characters. Well, thank you, Chris. I will count you in. And you are more than welcome to be in. Thank you all for hanging out and watching me do some coloring on the Shadowrun cartoon homage. When that's finished, you will get to see it first at the newsletter, the free newsletter for the show, 50 Years in the Dungeon.substack.com. If you aren't subscribed for that, I don't know what I can do for you. It's free. It's 50 Years in the Dungeon.substack.com. You get info on what's coming up. You get some behind the scenes stuff. You get things like the coloring page that we were talking about earlier. You'd have that already, and 8 others as we learned looking at it. Go in the archives, you can pull out the other 8. Yeah. So also, if you really like what's going on and things I do, and you want to be a deeper part of it, you might want to join my Patreon over at patreon.com/Stanex. I would love to have you there. There's also a free level there. There is less going on the free level there, but still some things. There are also paid levels, which, if and when you are ready and interested, you can explore those. But in the meanwhile, go check out the free one. Tell them I sent you. Tell me I sent you. All right. Thank you all for watching. Please give this a thumbs up or a like or a heart, whatever it is on the platform you're watching. Please, after we finish this out, leave me a comment. Leave a comment. These things are super helpful for getting this channel shown to other people, getting them to join us, growing my audience, and therefore having more people to buy stickers and character designs and enjoy all this stuff. All the Michael talking about, Michael, that's the key to succeeding at this, is to grow an audience. And the biggest help you can do to me in growing an audience is the likes and the comments. Those are huge. So please leave me a comment. I will reply to any comment that's left to this video. I promise. Tomorrow night, I'll be back with a new episode of Random Encounters. It will be a Gen Con themed Random Encounter, so that should be fun. Gen Con will have finished its day 1 by the time I start up. And then on Friday and Sunday, I'll be back with a Convo on the Couch episode with my good friend Owen K.C. Stevens and other special guests. So come on back and see all that. Until then, whoo boy, thank you for hanging out with me. I've really appreciated having you around. I always do. You guys are fun. You keep me energized. You keep me going. And I can't wait to see you again. Until then...